Glen Rose, Texas. This quiet, rural town in the southern United States has a population of only about 2,500 people. Yet it may hold one of the most remarkable and controversial archaeological objects ever recovered. Inside the Creation Evidence Museum sits an ancient hammer known as the London Artifact. Named after the small central Texas town where it was discovered in 1936, the hammer was found embedded in a sandstone concretion from the Travis Formation. Geologists note that formations of this type typically require on the order of 140 million years to develop. If that estimate is correct, the rock surrounding the tool would date to roughly 140 million years ago. Mainstream science places the emergence of modern humans at approximately 200,000 years ago. The obvious question follows: how can a manufactured iron hammer exist inside rock of that age? In the 1980s, the object was examined by two independent laboratories, the Creation Science Foundation in Australia and the Battle Memorial Institute in Columbus, Ohio. Both reported findings consistent with an age far greater than a few centuries. Part of the wooden handle shows clear signs of coaxification, the gradual transformation of organic material into a coal-like substance. Researchers point out that this process does not occur in the span of 100 years or even a few centuries. Claims that the hammer is simply a mid-19th century tool left behind by a prospector struggle to account for this chemical change. In addition to the handle displays evidence of partial petrification. In this process, mineral crystals slowly replace the original organic wood, structure a transformation that under normal geological conditions requires millions of years. Chemical analysis of the metalhead produced further unexpected results. The material consists of approximately 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and less than 1% sulfur. Most striking of all, the metal contains no detectable carbon. Modern steel production relies on blast furnaces that deliberately reduce carbon content. Yet, a residual carbon signature of roughly 0.2 to 2% almost always remains. The complete absence of carbon in the London artifact has been cited as evidence that the metal was produced by methods unlike those used in recent industrial history. If the object is indeed as old as the surrounding rock suggests, it would predate the accepted timeline of human tool-making by tens of millions of years. That possibility places the hammer firmly in the category of out-of-place artifacts, objects that appear to contradict the conventional chronological framework. Melanesian Islands, off the coast of Papua New Guinea, 8th century. According to local tradition, Aboriginal tribal leaders are said to have set sail eastward toward the Hawaiian Islands, carrying with them a highly revered ancestral crystal skull. Today, that skull, known as Synergy, remains under the care of guardian Cher Whitfield. She received it as a gift from a European businessman and only gradually learned the fuller history associated with it. When Whitfield first took possession of the skull, she knew only fragments of its story. That it had crossed the Pacific in a reed canoe, that it had spent time in Hawaii and on Easter Island among people associated with the sky, and that, in the 1600s, it had been given to a young nun in Peru. On her deathbed in 1720, the nun passed the skull to a native family with explicit instructions to keep it until the right person appeared, along with the oral history that accompanied it. The family then disappeared into the jungle. In 2005, a representative of an Aboriginal tribe saw a newspaper photograph of Synergy and arranged for the skull to be shown to tribal elders. According to Whitfield, the reaction was immediate and profound. The shaman and chief examined the photographs and the object itself. All ordinary activity stopped. A full 24 hours of feasting and storytelling followed. Elders later explained that they rarely speak of the skulls in daily life because the knowledge belongs to their most sacred teachings. They insisted the tribe did not manufacture the skull. It had been received as an ancestral legacy. Their origin tradition centers on twin brothers, one white, one black, who founded the people. The entire religious system revolves around twins, and the tribe claims to possess the twin of this particular skull. According to the legends, two identical skulls were created in remote antiquity. In Melanesian societies, spiritual power is not limited to living people. Ancestral spirits, both remote founders of a group's creation story, and more. Recently deceased relatives are believed to inhabit places, plants, animals, and objects. Early anthropologists working in the region in the 19th and early 20th centuries termed this pervasive force mana. Mana is understood as a divine, magical energy that is both the source of life and an animating presence in the world. Certain objects are treated with special reverence because they appear particularly charged with this power. Many people believe the strength of the energy increases with the age of the ancestral source connected to the object. Such items play practical roles in daily life. They are consulted and ritually addressed before warfare, hunting, gardening, fishing, and any activity whose outcome lies beyond ordinary human control. When approached correctly, spoken to with the proper words, granted permission, and offered the right respect, the ancestral spirit energy residing in the object is thought capable of influencing events in advance, even to the point of weakening an enemy before battle begins. The question naturally arises, is it possible for objects such as crystal skulls to carry otherworldly spirits, as many South Pacific Islanders maintain? And, if so, where do those spirits originate? South Pacific ancestral myths frequently describe people descending from the sky. One widespread tradition speaks of two brothers, Barolk and Merrill, who came down from the heavens during a golden age. When that era ended, they returned to the stars from which they had come. Crystal skulls, in this cultural framework, are regarded as divine and ancient. Some are used for divination, allowing a trained individual to make contact with an intelligence believed to be either accessible through the crystal or resident within it. Temple Mount, Jerusalem, summer 2013. Only 164 feet from the southern wall of the Temple Mount. Archaeologist Dr. Eilat Mazar made a significant discovery, an inscribed earthenware jug dated to approximately 3,000 years ago, the period associated with King Solomon. The find strengthened long-standing historical arguments that Solomon's temple once stood at this precise location. Beyond its chronological importance, the discovery also renewed interest among those who believe other, more valuable relics may still lie buried beneath the mount. According to the Hebrew Bible, Solomon constructed the temple in the 10th century BC on direct orders from God, primarily to house the Ark of the Covenant. While the temple is best known for that sacred container and, in some later traditions, for the possible presence of the Holy Grail, certain researchers focus on another object of extraordinary significance, Solomon's ring. Ancient astronaut theorists have suggested the ring may be of non-human origin. Solomon's ring is one of the lesser-known great treasures of antiquity. Tradition holds that the name of God was engraved upon it in a secret, cryptic form. The ring represented authority that originated beyond the ordinary human world. Whoever possessed it could compel any being that recognized that higher source of power. In Islamic records, the ring was given to Solomon by angels and granted him the ability to control the jinn, or genies. Both the Quran and the Hebrew Talmud state that the ring also assisted in the construction of the temple itself. Through it, Solomon is said to have commanded otherworldly beings, described variously as demons, genies, or, in modern speculative language, extraterrestrials. One detailed tradition recounts that Solomon needed advanced assistance to complete the temple. He therefore contacted Asmodeus, known in some sources as Ashmedai, the ruler of the demons. Using the ring, Solomon compelled Asmodeus to supply whatever was required. Asmodeus provided an object called the shamir. Traditional literature describes the shamir as a small worm that, when placed on stone, cut it with perfect precision. The shamir could slice and drill even the hardest rock with apparent ease. Some modern interpreters have asked whether the shamir might have been a technological cutting device, perhaps something analogous to a laser rather than a living creature. If Solomon possessed an instrument of such power, and if that instrument originated outside ordinary human technology, it might help explain why the ring later disappeared from the historical record. Like the Ark of the Covenant and other temple treasures, the ring was regarded as too dangerous for ordinary people to handle. Such objects were concealed when circumstances required it. In 586 BC, the first temple was destroyed and sacked by the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar. One theory holds that the most valuable treasures, gold, silver, the Ark, and possibly Solomon's ring were hidden in a secret chamber beneath the Temple Mount. Whether the ring remains there, or whether it was later recovered and moved, is unknown. In 1867, British Army engineers mapped the vaults beneath the temple ruins and recorded pointed arches with keystones in the Gothic style. Later, archaeological work recovered a sword, a spur, a lance, and a small cross, objects consistent with the 12th century warrior monks known as the Knights Templar. The Templars were founded in 1118 AD to protect pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem and established their headquarters on the Temple Mount. During their time in the city, they rose from relative obscurity to become one of the most powerful orders of the Crusades. By 1139, a papal decree made them answerable only to the Pope himself. Some researchers who treat the biblical accounts as historical sources note that the Ark of the Covenant and Solomon's ring are portrayed as the two most powerful instruments in the biblical narrative. Possession of either one, they argue, would have rendered the Templars virtually invincible. Egypt. Located roughly 20 miles south of Cairo, Saqqara is home to the world-famous step pyramid of King Djoser, constructed more than 4,000 years ago and the oldest of Egypt's 97 pyramids. The site is also one of the country's earliest large burial grounds, long known as the City of the Dead. In 1891, French archaeologists opened an ancient tomb containing the remains of an official named Podimon, who lived in the 3rd century BC. Among the objects recovered was a small wooden model that resembled a bird in flight. Accompanied by a papyrus bearing the inscription, "I want to fly," the artifact was sent to the Cairo Museum and placed among other bird figurines. It attracted little attention until 1969, when Egyptologist Dr. Khalil Messiah examined the collection and noticed that the Saqqara bird differed markedly from the rest. While the head possesses eyes and a beak-like form that suggest a bird, the wings do not. They are thicker near the body, taper toward the tips, and display a profile that modern aerodynamicists recognize as efficient for lift. Birds do not possess vertical rudders. Their flight control relies on different anatomical features. The presence of a rudder-like shape on the model has led some researchers to propose that it represents not a bird, but a flying machine. Could the ancient Egyptians have possessed practical knowledge of flight? In 2006, aviation and aerodynamics specialist Simon Sanderson constructed a scale model of the Saqqara bird 5 times larger than the original and tested it under controlled conditions. With the model moving at constant speed and the angle of attack gradually increased, instruments measured the aerodynamic forces generated. At an angle of 10 degrees, the model produced lift equal to 4 times its own weight, sufficient for flight. The tests demonstrated that the Saqqara bird functions as a highly developed glider, employing design principles still used today. The only element preventing sustained flight in the tests was the absence of a rear stabilizing elevator. Examination of the original model reveals a feature that may once have held such a surface, now lost. Computer modeling supports the conclusion that the shape is airworthy. A further practical question remains: how could such a glider have been launched? Modern sailplanes are typically towed aloft by powered aircraft. Egyptian researchers have suggested that a catapult or similar mechanical system could have served the same purpose. Contemporary glider enthusiasts sometimes use bungee cord launch methods, providing a functional parallel. If the Saqqara bird is capable of flight, the question of technological origin arises. Some researchers who explore ancient tastronaut ideas propose that knowledge of advanced aerodynamics may have been introduced by non-human visitors who shared cultural and scientific information, accelerating the transition from simpler to more sophisticated technologies. Throughout the world, objects continue to surface that resist easy classification within conventional timelines and technological histories. Skeptics often insist that only highly advanced machinery could constitute evidence of non-human contact. Ancient astronaut researchers counter that even relatively simple artifacts, when found in anomalous contexts, can raise legitimate questions. The London hammer remains one of the clearest examples. Discovered in 1936 by a local couple walking along a creek near London, Texas, the tool was found with part of its handle still embedded in ancient-looking rock. The handle shows coification and partial petrification. The surrounding sandstone belongs to the Travis Formation, whose concretions are generally regarded as requiring tens of millions of years to form. Mainstream archaeology places the beginning of sophisticated human tool-making far more recently. The hammer, therefore, continues to be cited as a classic out-of-place artifact, an object that does not fit the accepted chronological sequence. Similar challenges appear across the globe. Out-of-place artifacts, sometimes abbreviated UTA parts, are objects whose apparent age, material, or technological sophistication conflicts with the standard historical framework. Each case must be examined on its own merits. Some ultimately prove to be modern intrusions or others remain unresolved. New York City. February 2017. At New York University, researcher Giorgio Tsoukalos met with art collector Jared Collins, who had obtained temporary custody of a well-preserved elongated skull approximately 2,000 years old. Collins had contacted a museum seeking an elongated specimen for study. The institution reported that it held only one such skull, which had remained in storage for decades, with almost no accompanying documentation or modern testing. The museum identified the skull as originating from the Paracas region of Peru. NYU anthropologist Dr. Todd Disotell agreed to perform a forensic examination. Upon first seeing the specimen, he described it as freaky, a reaction shared by others present. Beyond the dramatic elongation of the cranium, Disotell noted that the sagittal suture, the joint where the two parietal bones met, appeared completely fused and obliterated. In typical human skulls, even those subjected to artificial cranial deformation through binding in infancy, residual traces of the suture usually remain visible. Their absence in this specimen, and in certain other elongated skulls examined by various researchers, constitutes a continuing anomaly. Disotell proceeded to extract genetic material by removing a tooth and drilling into it to obtain bone powder. The samples were prepared for laboratory analysis capable of determining sex, maternal and paternal ancestral lineages, and any deviations from known human genetic databases. Results were expected within 4 to 6 weeks. Los Angeles, California. April 2017. 2 months later, Tsoukalos received the laboratory findings from Dr. Disotell. The maternal DNA profile was clean and informative. The lineage did not match Native American populations of the New World. Instead, it clustered with European and Middle Eastern groups, showing a particularly close match to a Scottish individual. The result is difficult to reconcile with the conventional understanding of pre-Columbian population movements. One possible implication is that people carrying European genetic markers reached South America many centuries earlier than current models allow. Alternative explanations, including contamination or misattribution of the specimen's provenance, cannot yet be ruled out. Further testing would be required to clarify the picture. National History Museum of Transylvania, 18th January 2017. Ancient astronaut researchers Giorgio Tsoukalos and Eric von Däniken were granted a rare opportunity to examine the object known as the Iud wedge. Museum curator Anna Gruzia retrieved it from a storage locker where it had been deliberately kept from public view. Since the early 1970s, the piece is dense and heavy. It was recovered from a depth of approximately 10 meters, about 30 feet. Visible on its surface are areas where samples were previously removed for analysis, as well as 2 broken sections that may once have been attachment points. Museum staff acknowledged that the object does not fit standard historical categories, its function is unknown, and both its dating and its composition present difficulties. A thick natural patina covers the surface. Patina forms slowly through chemical reaction with the atmosphere. A layer of this apparent thickness is generally understood to require centuries or millennia. Artificial acceleration of genuine patina formation is considered extremely difficult. At the same time, aluminum of the purity found in the object was not produced by any known ancient metallurgical process. The museum therefore faces 2 primary problems. The metal itself appears anachronistic for the presumed age of the deposit, and the patina argues for considerable antiquity. Because of these uncertainties, the object is not currently exhibited. Curators note that historical interpretation depends in part on prevailing scholarly attitudes. When an artifact falls outside familiar categories, the cautious response has sometimes been to set it aside rather than to pursue extended investigation. The Ayud wedge remains an open question, either a more recent object preserved under unusual conditions, or an item whose origin and technology are not yet understood. Ural Mountains. Russia. The Urals form an ancient mountain chain running from northern to southern Russia. Visitors to the region have long reported unusual aerial phenomena, including fireballs and cigar-shaped craft. In 1991, a geological expedition searching for gold deposits near the Nadezhda and Balbanu rivers encountered something unexpected. At depths greater than 30 feet, in soil that had remained undisturbed for hundreds of thousands of years, the team recovered a scattering of tiny metal coils and springs, distributed across an area of many kilometers. The objects do not resemble ordinary mineral formations. Their shapes are regular and appear manufactured. The smallest pieces contain tungsten, a metal valued in modern aerospace and military applications for its resistance to extreme heat, along with molybdenum and copper. Under microscopic examination, the spirals display precise repeating structure of the kind normally produced only by machine-guided processes. Hand fabrication of such fine, regular coils is considered extremely difficult even with present-day tools. Researchers who have studied the finds describe them as resembling components of advanced circuitry or nanotechnology. The metals involved are not common in ordinary geological contexts. Mainstream explanations range from unrecognized natural processes to possible industrial contamination of ancient deposits. Alternative interpretations treat the coils as residual evidence of a technological capability far earlier than the accepted historical record allows. Whatever their ultimate origin, the Ural spirals continue to rank among the more perplexing metallurgical discoveries of recent decades, from a hammer sealed inside ancient sandstone in Texas, to crystal skulls carrying ancestral traditions across the Pacific, to a possible flying model from Egypt, elongated skulls with unexpected genetic signatures, an anomalous metal wedge from Transylvania, and microscopic coils recovered from deep Ural deposits. The same pattern recurs. Objects appear in contexts that challenge conventional chronologies or technological expectations. Some cases can be resolved through careful re-examination. Others resist easy closure. The cumulative effect is a persistent invitation to keep questioning the completeness of our current understanding of the human past.